Hello and welcome back to this tutorial. In our previous video, we learned how to merge two data frames using different techniques and methods. In this video, we are going to be learning how to plot our data. Okay, we can actually use pandas to plot our data. So now that we have this data, we have the months, we have the sales for the month, and marketing spend, and then IDs. We can actually plot the months against the sales. All right, so we can use a picture to represent the sales for each month, which month went high and which months did not go high, right? So we understand what this means. I believe that pictorial representation of data is a very crucial aspect of data analysis, and this enables you to use a picture in one glance to see everything or and make reasonable decisions about your business or about the data that you're working with. Okay, so for the sake of this video, we are going to be needing another library. So we are going to be installing another library, and that library is called Matplotlib. All right, so you can install it. I already have it installed in my workspace, but you can install it as you're watching this video. So you just use pip to install it like we have been doing by writing pip install matplotlib. Okay, so once you write this and run it, your matplotlib will just install for you, and then you can start using it. So after you are done installing your matplotlib, you are going to go to the top of your file and you are going to import it. So I am going to import it with you, and I'm going to just write the import statement, import matplotlib. And in this matplotlib, we are going to import another submodule. So we are going to import matplotlib.pyplot, and we are going to also give it an alias like we did with pandas, so that we will not have to write the full module name when we want to use it. So I'm going to call it PLT, so that whenever we want to call this module, we just use PLT. Okay, so coming down to the base of our file, I'm just going to comment this out. All right, we are going to be using this data frame too. So I'm going to rename it to just df so that we can work with it easily. So I'm going to rename it to this. And now I'm going to start working with the plotting. So now pandas on its own has a method that you have to call before you can start plotting your graphs. Okay, so the basic way to plot your data is to simply call the pandas plot method. So we are just going to say df, that is this data frame here, dot plot. All right, and then we are going to open and close our parentheses, and we are going to be passing in a few arguments in here. So the arguments that we are going to be passing in are the items that are going to be on the x-axis, that is the horizontal axis, and then the y-axis, and the y-axis is going to be the vertical axis. So which column do you want to be on the horizontal axis, and which column do you want to be on the y-axis? Okay, so we can say that we want the month to be on the horizontal axis. So we are going to say that x is equal to, and we are going to enclose the name of the column in a string quote. So I'm going to say that I want my x to be month, and then I'm going to write my comma, and then y, I will set it to probably sales, right? So now we have used the pandas plot method, and the next thing we are going to be doing is that we are going to use the matplotlib to show what we have just plotted, right? So now I'm going to call the plt module that we just imported, and I'm going to call the show method. So I'm going to just say plt dot show and open and close my parentheses, and I'm going to run this. Okay, so now we have the data from our data frame plotted for us in a graph. Okay, so we can see that we have the numbers from 150, right? So we have 120 here. So it's ranging from 150 to 350. So in between, if you hover in between this place, you can see the values changing somewhere down here, right? So, and we can play with the type of graph that we want to plot or that we want to use, okay, we can come in here where we called the plot property, and we are going to pass in another argument. So we are going to say that we want the kind to be line. Okay, so by default, if you do not pass in the kind, what you are going to have is a line graph. So this is a line graph. Okay, and if I want this to change to like a bar chart, I can just pass in bar there, and if I run this again, the type of graph that we have here is going to change. So I'm going to run that. Okay, we can see now that we have a bar chart neatly represented for us from January to October, right? Now, we can use other ones. We can use like histogram, and we can just do that by typing in hist, and I'm going to close this, and I'll run this script again. So now we have a histogram, right? So we can also change this to a pie chart, and for pie chart we're going to pass in another argument called autopicked, and we are going to set it to a string that represents the percentage that we want. So I'm going to write in percentage sign, and I'm going to write something like 1.1, and then F for frame, and then I'll pass in two other percentage sign. Okay, so I am going to close this and then run. So we have this beautiful pie chart here, and it represents all of the data. So another beautiful thing about Matplotlib is that you can save these plots as different file formats. You can save it as a PNG, you can save it even as a PDF, you can save it as a JPEG, all right, and so many file types that you can save as, even WebP, right? And then you can use it in your project if you want. So we are going to explore other things that we can do with this. So I'm going to cancel this for now. So for now, I'm going to change this thing to maybe like a bar chart. So, and again, I want to add in something like bar H. So it's going to be like a horizontal bar chart. And here, I'm going to add in a few more things with this Matplotlib. So I would like to customize the label, the title of the image, and the label on the x-axis, and also the label on the y-axis. Okay, so I am going to call the plt library, and I'm going to say dot title, and I'm going to pass in a title, monthly sales. Then I'm going to call another plt method, and I'm going to go for the x label. So this will label the x-axis. So on the x-axis, we have the month. So I can write in months of the year. And also go in with the y-axis. So plt dot y label. And I'll go in with sales. So I'll say sales for the month. Right? So I am going to run this again. So when we run this, so we are going to close what we had for the new script to show. So now we have the bar chart now in a horizontal way. So we have sales of the month on the y-axis and months of the year on the x-axis. So we now have a title for this graph, and the title is now monthly sales. So if we take it back to the normal bar chart, so we are going to close this, and we are going to run the script again. So we still have the same thing. All right. So another thing we can do with this library is that we can even change the colors of this bar chart. So we can even change the color of this bar chart, and we can say that we can pass in the color parameter, and we are going to set it to a custom color. So I can decide to go in with red, and I'm going to run this, and now we have this color, right? So another thing we can do is that we can have multiple items in this graph. Okay, we can decide to pass in a list of items here. So we can say that since these are all numbers, the sales, the market spend, and ID, they are all integers, we can plot them against the month. And this is going to give us like a multiple bar chart. So here I'm going to pass in the sales, separate them with comma, pass in the market spend. So I'm going to copy this and paste, and also I'll pass in the ID. Okay, so and then I'm going to save all of this and I'll close this. Okay, I can decide to change this, to remove this color parameter, because Matplotlib is going to assign different colors to all of the items that we passed in. So if we run this, we have this beautiful bar chart here that is representing multiple items. Okay, so now there are different kinds of plots. Okay, so you can decide to play around with all the different kinds of plots. All right, you can decide to go in with the bar chart, the histogram, the pie chart. You can also go in with the scatter chart. All right, so for instance, you want to plot an integer against another integer, you can go in with the scatter plot. And so I could decide to change this to an integer field. So ID is an integer field. So I'm going to remove this list here. So, and I'm going to leave it as marketing spend. So if I try to plot a bar chart for an integer field against an integer field, so we plot this now, and we have the ID plotted against that integer field. Okay, but the ideal is that you use the scatter plot for this kind of data. So it will just kind of use dots to represent the distribution of those two items. So if I run this, I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to run this. So we have this scatter plot, and it is just kind of intersecting where the ID has the value for the sales of the month. Okay, so now you can play around with some of these items, okay, and customize your graph. So you can even play around with the size of the image. So if you want to change the size of this image, so I can pass in something like fig size and pass in a tuple of two integers. So, and that is for the x and y axis. So I can say that I want it to be 5, 5 to 3, and I'll change this to bar chart. So you remember when we plotted the bar chart, it was really looking big. So I am going to run this again, and now we have a smaller graph. So if I increase the fig size, all the numbers will be able to span along the y-axis, and then the numbers will be able to distribute evenly. So I'm going to change this to maybe 15, and then the second value is for the y-axis. So I could pass in 6 or 5. So, and I will save this and I will run it. So now we have a very large file, and we have the distribution on the x-axis larger than the one on the y-axis. So if I want the distribution on the y-axis to look bigger than the one on the x-axis, I can decide to do 5 is to 15. Okay, so if I save this and run, and I'll close this and run this, so we should have a much more beautiful plot. So for me, this is, I mean, it's representing more. So now, this is how you can play around with your graph, change the colors, change the type, then label them appropriately, and then how to also save your file and play around with the size of your graph. Okay, so I believe that with this, you would have a basic idea of how to plot your data with Matplotlib. So thank you so much for watching this video, and see you in the next one.